58 years on this earth. 22 of them I wore a Phoenix detective's badge on my chest. I've seen enough to never sleep soundly again. Crime scenes that brought rookie cops to their knees out in the hallway. Whispered confessions in interrogation rooms at 3:00 in the morning. The faces of mothers identifying their children's bodies that I still carry with me into my dreams. But the moment that shattered everything I thought I knew about my own family, it didn't happen during a midnight raid. It didn't happen behind the steel doors of a holding cell. It happened on an ordinary Saturday night at an upscale steakhouse in Scottsdale, Arizona, during a birthday dinner that I had just swiped my own credit card to pay for. And the very moment I set the pen down, the man sitting across from me, the man I had distrusted from the very first handshake 4 years ago, the man I still called son-in-law every Thanksgiving, reached across the crisp white linen tablecloth. He grabbed a fistful of my daughter's hair and yanked her head back hard. And his mother, she leaned back into the leather booth, crossed her arms over her chest, and smiled. Smiled like she had just watched her favorite player score the winning goal in a championship final. That was the moment I realized a truth I had spent 4 years willfully blinding myself to. My daughter hadn't married the wrong man. She had fallen into the hands of a predator, and his mother was the one who had trained him. My name is Daniel Whitaker. I served 22 years with the Phoenix Police Department, the last 14 in homicide. I've stood in rooms most folks couldn't walk into without losing their dinner. I've interviewed men who did things I won't describe out loud, and I kept my hands flat on the table, my voice level, my breathing even, because that is what the job demands of you. So believe me when I tell you, it cost me everything I had inside me to keep still in that booth. Everything. And before I go a single step further, let me say something straight to you watching this right now. If you've ever sat across from somebody you love and watched a stranger hurt them in plain sight, if you've ever felt your hands clench under a table while you forced your face to stay blank, you already know what kind of math I had to do in the next 4 seconds. So, stay with me on this one, because this is not the story of how a retired detective lost his temper. This is the story of how a retired detective used 22 years of training to dismantle 2 people legally, quietly, and completely without ever raising his voice once. Let me walk you back a little. My daughter, her name is Hannah. She just turned 31 last week. She's got her mother's hazel eyes, that quick, easy laugh that fills up a room, and unfortunately for her, she inherited my stubborn streak too, which depending on the morning is either the best thing about her or the most exhausting. Hannah married a man named Cody Lawson about 4 years ago. The wedding was at a resort up in Paradise Valley, the kind of place where the bill could have bought me a decent used pickup. I walked her down the aisle that day. I gave a toast. I meant every single word of it, and now I have to live with the fact that I was wrong about almost all of them. Cody Lawson is 34. He runs a small logistics team at a company called Sterling Logistics out of their Tempe office. He drives a lifted Ram 2500 that I have never once seen carrying anything heavier than a six-pack. He has the kind of handshake that's been practiced in front of a mirror, and a smile that never quite reaches his eyes. The first time he came over to the house, I told my late wife Linda after he left, "That boy practices his face." I never said it to Hannah. I was being generous, the same generous reflex that's got me into trouble my whole life. His mother is Patricia Lawson, 63 years old, runs a licensed in-home daycare in Tempe called Little Acorns Learning Home. She takes care of around 18 children ages 2 through 5. She's loud the way some people mistake for warm, opinionated the way some people mistake for wise. And she had been wedging herself into Hannah and Cody's marriage with both elbows since roughly the second week of their honeymoon. So, picture us. Mariposa Grill on Camelback Road, Scottsdale. Saturday evening, October 4th, 7:32 p.m., the 4 of us at a corner booth. I had made the reservation 3 weeks in advance. I had ordered the appetizers. I was halfway through a glass of perfectly decent Cabernet when the argument started. And it started the way their arguments always seem to start, quietly. Way too quietly. The kind of quiet two people fall into when they've had this exact same fight 40 times before, and they both already know how it ends. Cody had said something passive-aggressive about Hannah spending the previous Saturday at my place helping me sort through Linda's clothes, something I've been doing in slow, painful pieces for almost 2 years since the cancer took her. Hannah comes when she can. Cody apparently had a problem with that. Their voices stayed low, but I was watching. The way 22 years of detective work hardwires you to watch. I saw Hannah's shoulders pull inward. I saw her chin drop 2 inches. I saw Cody's jaw lock up tight. And I saw Patricia, his mother, watching the whole thing with an expression I can only describe as fascinated. And here it is. This is the moment everything pivots. Cody reached across the table, not for the bread basket, not for her wine glass. He reached across that white linen tablecloth, and he grabbed a fistful of Hannah's hair right at the base of her skull, and he yanked hard enough that her head jerked sideways. Hard enough that she made a small, involuntary sound. Hard enough that the couple at the next booth turned and stared. Hannah's eyes filled instantly. She didn't scream. She didn't fight back. She just went absolutely still, the way a rabbit goes still when a hawk crosses overhead. And Patricia Lawson, my daughter's mother-in-law, leaned slowly back in her chair, folded her arms across her chest, looked at her son with what I can only describe as genuine pride, and said something I will never forget for as long as I live. She said, "That's how it's done. She needs to learn her place." And let me pause right here for a second, because I want you watching this to understand something. If I were sitting where you are, I'd be screaming at the screen for me to flip that table over. I really would. My very first instinct, the one that comes from somewhere older than reason, was to put my fist through Cody Lawson's nose so hard his ancestors felt it. I want to be honest with you. I was not calm. I was the exact opposite of calm. My hands were resting flat on the table, and they were perfectly still. And that stillness was doing the work of about 6 men. But here is the thing 22 years in homicide teaches you. The angriest response in the room is almost never the most effective one. The man who loses control in a critical moment hands all the power to the other side. I had watched that exact pattern play out in interview rooms 100 times. The guilty party who keeps his face blank walks. The innocent party who screams gets charged. Cody Lawson was not going to win the next 10 seconds because of my temper. Not on my watch. So my hand moved, but it didn't move toward him. It moved toward my jacket pocket. I pulled out my phone, opened the camera, pressed record. Cody was still glaring at Hannah. Patricia was still smiling that proud little smile. Neither of them noticed. The phone sat on the table, screen up, casual as a glass of water, catching every second of Cody's red face, Hannah's wet eyes, Patricia's folded arms, all of it lit up under the warm pendant lighting of Mariposa Grill. I let it run for a full 40 seconds. Then I set the phone face down, picked up my napkin, folded it twice, laid it gently beside my plate. "Check, please." Not loud, not angry. The exact same voice I used to use in the seconds before slipping cuffs onto a suspect. The voice you use when you need everyone in the room to stay calm until the situation is locked down. Cody blinked. "We haven't even gotten our entrees yet." "Check, please." Our server, a young woman named Megan who had clearly seen the whole thing and had been hovering uncertainly 2 tables away, was at our booth in under 30 seconds. I paid the entire bill, every penny, including Cody's ribeye that hadn't even been cooked yet. I stood up. I looked at my daughter. "Hannah, sweetheart, get your coat." She looked at Cody, then at Patricia, then at me, and something in my face, I don't know what exactly, but something she'd known her whole life as my daughter, made her pick up that coat without a word. Cody started to stand up. "Hold on a second, you can't just—" "Cody." I turned and looked at him for the first time since the whole thing started. No expression. The interview room face. "Enjoy the rest of your evening." And I walked my daughter out of that restaurant, through the polished glass doors, across the parking lot, straight to my truck. She was shaking. I was not. Now, if you're new to this channel, this is exactly the kind of story we tell here. Real situations, real consequences, real people who got exactly what they earned. Smash that subscribe button, drop a comment somewhere down below, and stick with me, because the next part is where it gets really good. We sat in that parking lot for 11 minutes. I know because I watched the dashboard clock the way I used to watch it on long stakeouts. Not impatient, just tracking. Hannah didn't say a word for the first 4 minutes. Then, "Dad, please. Please don't do anything." "Already did something." She turned her head. "What did you do?" "I recorded it." A long, heavy silence. "Dad," Hannah, my voice was level. "Has he done that before?" She stared out the passenger window. The Scottsdale parking lot was busy, couples walking in for date night, a valet pretending he didn't see us sitting there. Not in public, not in public. The specific qualifier of someone who has spent so long parsing the difference between acceptable and unacceptable that they've forgotten what normal even looks like. "How long, baby?" She was quiet for a while. "Hannah, how long?" "About a year and a half." She said it to the glass. "It's not always physical. Mostly he just gets loud, says things, the hair thing. It's happened maybe 5 times." She stopped breathing for a second. Five times. And let me say something here. Because if you're watching this and you have a daughter or a sister or a friend who's been a little too quiet lately about her relationship, what I'm about to tell you matters. 5 times my daughter had a man grab her hair. And she had not told me, because she knew exactly what I would have done, and she was protecting him. Or protecting me, or protecting some version of the marriage she still believes she could fix. None of those reasons are stupid, not one of them. The shame women carry in these situations is not their failure, it is the architecture of the abuse itself. I didn't say any of that out loud. I just laid my hand over hers on the center console. "Okay, kiddo, here's what's about to happen. You're sleeping at my place tonight. Tomorrow morning I make some calls. You don't have to decide anything tonight. Just let your old man work." "Dad, I don't want this to blow up, Hannah." I turned and looked at her dead in the eye. "He grabbed your hair in front of 40 people, and his mother told you in front of 40 people that you needed to learn your place. It already blew up." The smallest, most exhausted nod I've ever seen. The nod of a woman who has been carrying something heavy for a year and a half and just gave herself permission to set it down. We drove south to my house in Ahwatukee. I made her chamomile tea, the kind Linda used to make. She fell asleep on the couch, under Linda's old throw blanket. I sat at my kitchen table and watched the video on my phone 4 separate times to make sure I had what I thought I had. I had it. Then I made 2 calls. The first was to Mike Delaney. Mike was my partner for 11 of my 22 years on the force. He retired 2 years before I did, and now runs a small private security consulting business out of Mesa. He answered on the second ring because Mike Delaney has not let a phone call go to voicemail since 1987. Whitaker. It's almost 11:00. I have video of Cody Lawson assaulting Hannah at a restaurant tonight, witnessed by the entire room. Quiet on the line. "How bad, Danny?" Hair pull, clean angle, visible, her reaction is on camera, longer pause. "You filed a report yet?" "First thing in the morning, I wanted you to know first." "Good." Mike's voice changed. The shift from friend to professional that I recognized because I have the exact same shift built into me. "Who's your family attorney?" "Ben Castellanos." Phoenix Biltmore office. "Call him before 9:00. He needs to know before Cody talks to anybody who can give him real legal advice." "Way ahead of you, Mike." A pause. "Whitaker, you didn't put hands on him." "Didn't need to." I could practically hear him nodding through the line. "Good man, keep it that way." The second call was to Ben Castellanos' emergency line. Ben is a family law attorney I have known for 13 years. We met during a domestic violence case I worked back in 2013 where his client needed protective documentation and my evidence was what tipped the scales. He is methodical, thorough, and he is almost impossible to surprise. "Ben, Daniel Whitaker. I need an emergency consultation in your office first thing tomorrow. I have video evidence of an assault on my daughter by her husband. Multiple public witnesses. The mother-in-law is on camera encouraging the assault. Brief silence. Which restaurant? Mariposa Grill on Camelback. They have surveillance. Standard for that price point, yes." Another silence. 8:00 a.m. tomorrow, my office. and I sat at my kitchen table listening to Hannah's slow, even breathing in the next room, her cheek pressed into Linda's blanket, and I made myself a fresh cup of coffee, and I started writing a list. Now, and I want to say this very directly to anyone watching, a real detective doesn't win a case by being the loudest person in the room. A real detective wins a case by stacking facts on top of facts on top of documents on top of timestamps until the structure is so heavy that the other side can't push back without it collapsing on top of them. Cody Lawson thought Saturday night was just a domestic spat that got a little out of hand. He thought Monday morning he'd be back in his Tempe office at Sterling Logistics bossing around his 8-person team. He thought Patricia would call Hannah on Tuesday and smooth it all over the way Patricia always smoothed everything over. A little pressure, a little guilt trip, a little, well, you know how he gets. He was wrong on all 3 counts. Sunday morning, October 5th, I was sitting in Ben Castellanos' Biltmore office at 8:00 a.m. exactly. He had already pulled up Mariposa Grill's website on his laptop. They advertise an integrated security system, which is industry standard at that price point. He had also confirmed that Arizona is a one-party consent state for audio recording, meaning my video was fully admissible in court. I set my phone on his desk and pressed play. He watched it twice. He didn't react during the first viewing. During the second viewing, he paused it on Patricia's face at the exact moment she said what she said, and he looked at me over the rims of his glasses. Daniel, this is a gift, I know. The mother-in-law on camera explicitly endorsing the assault. I have been doing family law for 19 years. I have never once had that on tape. Neither have I. He leaned back in his chair. All right. Here is what we're building. Number 1, emergency order of protection for Hannah. I can file it through the duty judge in Maricopa County by this afternoon. Number 2, criminal assault referral to Scottsdale PD since the incident occurred in their jurisdiction. You file the report. Number 3, he paused. What does Cody do for a living? Sterling Logistics. Manages a team of 8 in Tempe. Employment contract. I don't know the details. Most mid-size logistics outfits have moral conduct clauses in their handbooks. Behavior that brings the company into disrepute, domestic violence convictions, anything that exposes them to liability. I have a contact in HR consulting who can walk that through with their legal department. He was already writing. And the mother, Patricia Lawson, runs a licensed in-home daycare in Tempe called Little Acorns Learning Home. 18 kids, 2 to 5. He looked up. She is a state-licensed child care provider. She is. And she is on video encouraging a man to physically harm a woman and instructing that woman that she needs to learn her place in front of an entire restaurant. Ben put down his pen. Daniel, do you understand what the Arizona Department of Health Services is going to do with this video? I had a strong idea. I wanted to hear him say it out loud. Tell me. A licensed home daycare operator appearing on camera endorsing domestic violence triggers a mandatory fitness review. They will pull her entire licensing history, and the parents of those 18 children by Arizona law have the right to be notified. The room went still for a second. Build it all, I told him. Build every piece of it. He picked the pen back up. How is she? She slept. She's scared, but she's steady. Does she want to move forward? She wants to save the marriage. He nodded slowly. That's almost universal. I worked DV cases for 6 years before I went into family law full time. I know every version of this. I leaned forward. Ben, what I also know is that 14 months of documented incidents which I am going to systematically collect from her this week, combined with this video, combined with the protective order, is going to give Hannah options she does not currently believe she has. I am not going to force her hand. I am going to build her a door. He looked at me for a long second. Then he nodded once. The nod of a man who has decided he is fully in. $800 a day plus filing fees. I'll waive the consultation. Don't waive the consultation, Ben. I don't need favors, Daniel. I need work. Then do the work. Sunday afternoon, I drove out to Scottsdale Police Department and filed the assault report. The officer who took my statement was a young guy named Officer Marcus Reed, maybe 26 years old. The careful, measured manner of a young cop who takes the job seriously. He watched the video twice. He filled out every line of the report with the kind of thoroughness that told me his training officer had done right by him. Mr. Whitaker, you were a detective. This is a strong case. The public setting, the multiple witnesses, the corroborating video, this is strong. I know it. We'll request the security footage from Mariposa first thing tomorrow. Are you requesting an arrest warrant? I'm requesting full process. Let the law take its course. He nodded. We'll be in touch by Tuesday. Now, if you've ever wondered what it actually looks like to navigate a domestic violence situation through the American legal system, and you want to remember this for somebody you love, here's what I want you to take from this part. You file the report. You document everything. You retain counsel. You let the system do its job. You do not become the loudest person in the room. You become the most prepared. Monday morning, October 6th, I had a conversation with Hannah at my kitchen table that lasted just over 2 hours. I didn't push. I didn't interrogate her. I made breakfast. Scrambled eggs, sourdough toast, the same orange juice she's loved since she was 7 years old. And I let her talk about the first time. About how it had escalated so slowly that each individual incident, taken on its own, seemed survivable. She showed me her phone. Text messages going back 14 months that she had never deleted. Cody's messages after each incident. Apologies that were actually instructions. Affection that was actually surveillance. The I love you so much but you made me messages. That classic architecture of blame that every abuser eventually constructs. I photographed every single screen. Sweetheart, I asked her with no accusation in my voice, just genuine curiosity, why didn't you tell me? She stared down into her coffee mug. Because I knew exactly what you would do. What did you think I would do? Go after him, Dad. I waited until she looked up. Look what I did instead. She was quiet for a moment. Then something moved across her face, not quite a smile, something next to one. You took out your phone. I took out my phone, and now you're building a case. She thought about that. Is it going to work? I refilled her orange juice. Yes, but Hannah, I need you to understand something very important. None of this matters if you go back to him. The protective order, the evidence, the attorney, all of it requires you to choose something different. I can build the door, kiddo. I cannot make you walk through it. She was quiet for a long time. Mom would have hated him. She finally said, almost to herself, "Your mother," I told her, "had excellent instincts. And listen, if you're sitting at home right now and you have somebody in your life walking around in shoes Hannah was walking around in, I'm talking to you directly. The door has to be yours to walk through. Nobody can carry you across it, but you can absolutely have help building it." Wednesday, October 8th, 4 days after the restaurant, 3 things happened in this exact order. First, Ben Castellanos called at 9:00 a.m. to confirm that the emergency order of protection had been granted by the Maricopa County duty judge that morning. Cody Lawson was now legally barred from contacting or approaching Hannah. He had been served at his Sterling Logistics office at 8:45 a.m. by a process server. According to that server, his face when he opened the envelope looked like somebody had switched the lights off behind his eyes. Good. Second, Officer Marcus Reed called at 10:30 to inform me that Scottsdale PD had reviewed Mariposa Grill's security footage, which corroborated my phone video from a second angle, and they had issued a warrant for Cody Lawson's arrest on charges of misdemeanor assault. Cody turned himself in through his attorney by 12:15. He was processed, posted bail, and was released by 2:00 p.m. The arrest was now permanently on his record. Third, at 3:15 that afternoon, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring through to voicemail. The message was from a licensing investigator at the Arizona Department of Health Services. They had received a complaint referral concerning Patricia Lawson and Little Acorns Learning Home in Tempe. They were opening a fitness review. I sat there in my kitchen in Ahwatukee and listened to that voicemail twice. I did not call back right away. I just sat there with my coffee, and I thought about Patricia Lawson leaning back in her chair at Mariposa Grill with her arms folded across her chest and that proud little smile on her face. That's how it's done. She needs to learn her place. 18 families in Tempe, Arizona, were about to receive a letter in their mailbox. And I want to say something here because this is the part of the story that honestly gives me the most peace and the most pause. The most satisfying moment in any case I ever worked, and I worked a few hundred of them over 22 years, is not the arrest. It's not the conviction. It's the moment the other side realizes the game ended 3 moves ago, and they were the very last ones at the table to figure it out. Cody Lawson had that moment on the morning of Thursday, October 9th, 5 days after he sat in a Scottsdale steakhouse booth and decided he was untouchable. He was placed on administrative leave from Sterling Logistics pending an internal HR review effective 10:00 a.m. I know because Ben's HR consultant contacted Spoken with Sterling's legal department on Tuesday. Not as a threat, not as a demand, simply as a courtesy notification that an employee had been arrested for assault. That video evidence existed, and that Sterling might want to be aware before it surfaced in local news. Sterling's company conduct policy, exactly as Ben had predicted, contained the specific clause we needed. Cody was escorted from the building by 9:30 a.m. and informed not to return until further notice. He called Patricia from the parking lot. I know this because Hannah was accidentally CC'd on an email chain Cody sent later that week to his attorney, an email he had absent-mindedly addressed to her old personal address that he'd forgotten she still checked. People under pressure make small catastrophic errors. Cody was very much under pressure. Hannah brought me the printed email Thursday afternoon. She drove herself over. That was new. 5 days earlier she'd been shaking in a parking lot. Now she was driving to her father's house with printed emails and a look on her face I recognized immediately. The look of a person who has been handed evidence that confirms every suspicion they ever had, and who is now slowly processing what it means to have been right all along. He's been put on leave, she said, sitting at my kitchen table. He's furious. I would imagine he is. She slid the printout across to me. He's blaming me. His attorney wrote in here that the complainant's family initiated a coordinated campaign. She looked up. Coordinated campaign, that's us, that's us. Is that even legal, what you did with his job and her daycare? Hannah, I reported a crime. I provided evidence to relevant licensing authorities. I retained a family law attorney to protect my daughter's legal rights. All of that is exactly what you are supposed to do. She was quiet. Patricia called me. What did she say? She said I needed to get my father under control. Hannah paused, then a small disbelieving laugh. She said I was lucky Cody loves me as much as he does. The kitchen went very quiet. Hannah, my voice stayed level. What did you say back to her? I hung up on her. She looked at me with an expression I can only describe as newly arrived. The expression of someone who has been driving in the wrong direction for a very long time and just figured out finally where she actually is. I hung up the phone, and I drove here. The next 2 weeks moved the way good investigative work moves. Not dramatically, steadily. Each piece linking into the next with the quiet logic of a case that has been built right from the foundation up. Ben Castellanos filed for divorce on Hannah's behalf on Monday, October 13th. Irreconcilable differences, documented history of domestic violence, order of protection already in place. Cody's attorney filed a counter motion within 4 days. The language was aggressive, the legal equivalent of a man puffing up his chest because he had no real ammunition left. Ben wasn't puffing up anything. Ben had the video, the police report, the arrest record, the text history, and 14 months of incidents that Hannah and I had compiled together at my kitchen table over 3 long mornings. 14 months written out in chronological order with dates, descriptions, and photographs of 2 separate bruises Hannah had documented on her phone and never shown a single living soul until that week. Cody's attorney went silent after Ben sent over the full documentation package. That particular kind of silence has a very specific sound. I have heard it before. It is the sound of a defense strategy being completely thrown out and rebuilt from scratch. Patricia's situation developed on its own clock. The Arizona Department of Health Services fitness review was thorough. They interviewed Patricia. They reviewed the video, which had been formally submitted as part of the complaint referral. They interviewed her assistant. They contacted Mariposa Grill and confirmed the incident had been witnessed by restaurant staff and captured on the restaurant's surveillance system. On October 22nd, 18 days after that birthday dinner, ADHS sent letters to the parents of all 18 children currently enrolled at Little Acorns Learning Home. The letters informed those parents that the facility was under a licensing fitness review and that they had the legal right to request information about the proceedings. I found out about the letters because one of the parents, a young mother whose 4-year-old daughter had been at Little Acorns for almost 2 years, called the number on the letter, spoke to the licensing investigator, and then posted about the entire situation in a Tempe neighborhood Facebook group. By the following morning, 11 of the 18 families had withdrawn their children from the facility pending the review's outcome. Little Acorns, by the end of the next week, had 7 children left. Patricia Lawson called Hannah 3 more times during that period. Hannah did not pick up. On the 3rd call, Patricia left a voicemail. Hannah played it for me 1 time and then she deleted it. The message was long. It contained the words "your father" approximately 11 times. It did not contain the words "I'm sorry" a single time. And listen, if you're still with me here, do me one quick favor. Hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment below. A huge percentage of people watch these stories all the way through and never tap the button, and it genuinely keeps this whole thing going. Thank you for being here. Monday, October 27th, 23 days after the dinner at Mariposa Grill, Cody Lawson accepted a settlement through his attorney. The terms were uncontested divorce, division of marital assets according to Arizona law, and a permanent restraining order replacing the emergency one. No custody dispute. They had no children, thank God. Cody received his share of the joint accounts and the furniture he had brought into the marriage. Hannah received the rest, the condo she had decorated with her own hands and her freedom, which was worth considerably more than the furniture. Cody did not contest. His attorney, after reviewing the full package Ben had assembled, had clearly advised him that contesting this divorce in an Arizona courtroom with that video, that police report, that arrest record and 14 months of documented incidents was an idea that would not, under any conceivable scenario, end in his client's favor. Cody signed on a Monday morning. I know the exact time because Ben called me as soon as the counter signatures were verified. Done, he said. Filed. It is over, Daniel. I was sitting at my kitchen table in Ahwatukee, coffee in my hand, October light coming in through the window, the specific gold of an Arizona fall morning that Linda always used to say was her favorite thing about living in the desert. And the Sterling situation. Their HR review concluded Friday. He resigned before they could complete the termination process. Same outcome, different paperwork, and Patricia. The fitness review has no fixed timeline, but losing 11 families in a single week is going to be part of her permanent record with the state. Good. I drank my coffee. Thank you, Ben. Daniel, you built this. Hannah came over that afternoon. She brought a bottle of wine, which is a thing she got from Linda's side of the family, the conviction that significant moments deserve to be marked with something decent in a glass. She also brought a small succulent in a little terracotta pot, which she set on my kitchen windowsill right next to the coffee maker. What's that for? I asked her. For your kitchen, it needed something living in it. She sat down. Is it really done? The divorce is filed and signed. The restraining order is permanent. Cody is no longer your legal problem. I looked at her. How do you feel? She thought about it honestly, the way she always does. Hannah is not a person who tells you what you want to hear. Tired, sad, a little scared about what comes next, a pause, and relieved. Like I've been carrying something heavy for a year and a half, and I finally just set it down. She looked at the little plant on the windowsill. Mom would have loved that plant. Your mother would have bought you 10 more, I told her, and made me carry every single one of them in from the truck. She laughed. The real kind of laugh. The kind without anything dark sitting underneath it. We sat in that kitchen for almost 2 hours drinking the wine, talking about nothing important. Her job, which she likes. Thanksgiving, which we're doing at her condo this year, just the two of us and old Mr. Patterson from next door, who cooks better than both of us combined and never minds being asked. Linda's throw blanket, which Hannah wants to keep, which is absolutely fine by me. At some point she looked at me from across the table with an expression that was half curious and half something I couldn't quite name. Dad, yeah, kiddo, that night in the parking lot. You could have gone back inside, I could have. You didn't. She watched me. Why? And here is what I want anyone watching this to really hear. Because the answer to her question is the entire lesson of the past month. I have known the answer since I was 23 years old, when an old training officer named Sergeant Howard Pike told me something I have never forgotten in 35 years on this planet. I thought about how to say it to my daughter in a way that would actually land, because hitting Cody Lawson in that steakhouse would have felt incredible for about 45 seconds. I told her, and then I would have been the one in the back of a squad car. And then the entire story becomes about me, not about you, and Cody walks. I lifted my wine glass. A retired detective with a battery charge versus a video of a man assaulting his wife in public. Which one of those helps my daughter? She nodded slowly. The video, a pause. I picked up my phone instead of my fists because the phone was going to do more damage to him than my fists ever could have. That isn't patience, Hannah, that's math. She was quiet for a moment. Then cop instinct, something like that. She raised her glass, I raised mine. To doing the math, she said, to doing the math. So here's what this whole thing taught me. And I'm going to say it plainly because I think a lot of people watching need to hear it in plain English. This teaches us that rage is a luxury most situations cannot afford. The mistake that almost everyone makes when somebody they love is hurt in front of them is reaching for the loudest, biggest, most immediate response. And the loudest response almost always feels good for 45 seconds and then ruins everything for the next 10 years. The real work is colder. The real work is documentation. The real work is patience. The real work is calling the right attorney before the other side calls theirs. If you're watching this from anywhere in the United States and you suspect somebody you love is in a situation like Hannah's, here is one specific thing you can do today. Save the National Domestic Violence Hotline number in your phone right now. 1800-799-7233 or text START to 88788. It is free. It is 24 hours a day. It is confidential and they will help you build a plan. If you're a witness to something the way I was in any state, learn whether your state is one-party consent or two-party consent for recording. In Arizona, where this happened, it's one party. In about 38 states, it's one party. Know the law before you ever need to use it. And ask yourself this, if somebody you love right now were to walk into your kitchen tonight and tell you the truth about their relationship, would you already have the names and numbers ready? Or would you be starting from zero? Because Hannah is fine now. Cody, last I heard, is unemployed and living with his mother in Tempe. Patricia's daycare, as of last week, has 6 children left and an open licensing review. Ben's paralegal sent me the finalized divorce decree on October 31st with a single note that read, simply, clean. I put that decree in a manila folder. I put the folder in my filing cabinet between 2 other documents I have kept for a very long time, Hannah's birth certificate and her college diploma. Everything that matters in my house goes in the same place. Then I went to the kitchen and I watered the little succulent on the windowsill. It's doing well. Linda always said I had no business keeping anything alive, so I think she'd get a kick out of that. Now, before you go, if you made it all the way to the end of this story, I want to hear from you. Comment 1 if you think Daniel did the right thing by recording instead of fighting. Comment 2 if you believe Patricia and Cody deserve a faster path to forgiveness than they got. Comment 3. If you have ever been in a situation that even slightly rhymed with Hannah's, and you want this kind of story to keep being told. And please drop a comment letting me know what city or country you are watching from, and what time it is for you right now. I genuinely love reading every single one, from Phoenix all the way to wherever you happen to be tonight. Disclaimer: this is a fictional story inspired by common situations that affect families across the United States, but it has been completely rewritten by me here in Phoenix, Arizona, to avoid reused content, and any resemblance to real persons, businesses, or specific events is unintentional. If this story moved you, please give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. There are more stories coming, more lessons coming, and more reminders coming that the angriest response in the room is almost never the most effective one. Stay safe out there. Take care of the people who take care of you. And remember, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is set the phone down face up and just press record.